The words you use can build your team up or break your team down. Today, we're going to talk about the art of giving good feedback.
Come on, let's go. I don't know what comes next, but I couldn't care less. I refuse to feel stressed. There's no fear in my chest. Hit a move with my steps. Walk away from the pain I've been through. This feeling I'm feeling is brand new. This is the moment I break through.
Welcome to 10-Minute Masterclass. My name is Trey Sheneman. I'm your host and lead MC here on 10-Minute Masterclass. And our goal at 10-Minute Masterclass is always to take timeless business principles and teach you how to apply them to today's business problems. No matter when I was inside of big teams, scaling to 9 figures or more, or inside of small teams as a startup founder, taking something to market, I always found that growth came from solving problems inside of what I call are the 4 core drivers of growth: marketing, sales, operations, and leadership. In today's episode, we're going to dive deeper into leadership, specifically people leadership, and what it's like when you're trying to build and run a team. One of the greatest business lessons that I ever learned was from my very first business mentor. So I had come out of a ministry background. I had been on staff at a private Christian school and worked also part-time at a larger, multi-campus, 5,000-6,000 person church. And sort of ministry was just what I always knew. And in ministry, unfortunately, a lot of people are peacekeepers and not peacemakers, or they really are more focused on saying what they think people want to hear rather than what they need to hear. And so when I got into the business world, I carried a lot of that psychology into what I was doing. And I was about 1.5 years in to business, and I had gone to an event as a guest speaker. And it was like a marketing for travel kind of event. And I, kind of did my lecture at this event, and then I stayed and I listened to another lecture. And there's this one gentleman, he just blew me away with his content. I was really, really encouraged by his position. And I remember saying, like, when he came off stage, man, if I run into this guy at this event somewhere, I'm going to let him know, what I thought. Sure enough, later on that day, they had like a little mixer thing, and I ran into him and I said, hey man, I really enjoyed your talk. These are the notes that I took down. I'm a brand new business owner, yada, yada, yada. And his, profoundly, his kind of first question to me was, hey, are you a Christian? And I was like, yes, that is the faith, that's the faith that I subscribe to. It's kind of the ministry background that I had. And I was like, yeah, sure. And he was like, I don't know. And long story short, he shared with me that he had recently converted to Christianity and that he was really hoping he could meet a young, solid brother in the faith that could kind of spend time with him, teaching him about sort of, the Word of God as we believe it in the Christian faith and everything therein. And he made me an offer. He said, what if I mentor you in business and you mentor me in the Bible? And I was like, what is happening right now? And we proceeded to have this incredible relationship over the next couple of years where we did just that. And I remember one of our early sessions, this gentleman, Gideon, he looked at me and he said, Trey, I want to talk to you about your ability to receive feedback. And he had just been picking up on some situations that he saw me handle. And he said this to me, and it is still to this day one of the most profound things I have ever learned and taught other people. And he said to me that most people take criticism to their heart and compliments to their head when they really should be doing it the other way around. They should be taking criticisms to their head and compliments to their heart. And what happens is when we take criticisms to our heart, we get downtrodden. We think we're terrible. We think we really screwed up. We project more onto ourselves than the person even giving us the feedback is trying to say. And the inverse of that happens when we take compliments to our head. We get puffed up. We get high in the sky and think we're God's gift and all these things. And Gideon really worked with me on managing my feedback muscle in that relationship of being able to right size when I was receiving what he called neutral feedback. It's neutral feedback until you do something with it. And you have to be the one to choose to do good with it or to do bad with it. Because ultimately, if nothing else, hear this, great feedback never harms, but it sometimes hurts. a colleague of mine named Brendan Wachko at a company called Ramsey Solutions used to say that all the time, and it always just rang true with me, that great feedback, sometimes it does hurt, but it doesn't harm. It doesn't cause enduring pain. And so in this episode, I really want to walk through the approach that I take to giving feedback. It's an approach I learned from incredible leaders. It's an approach that I believe helps people get the criticism and the compliment side of what feedback is, and really to resolve it in their own psychology in a fresh way. So for me, when you're giving feedback, whether it's criticism or a compliment, there's really 3 elements on how you should deliver that feedback to make sure that you're setting the person up to do well with that feedback. Number 1, you have got to be clear. The worst kind of feedback you can give someone is vague. So if there was a very specific thing they did that's a behavior you want to correct, give them explicit information around what that activity was, that behavior was, when it happened, and what they need to do to correct it. So being clear when you're giving feedback is being kind. The second part of it is, don't just give them the feedback of you did this wrong. Give them the constructive side of the feedback after you've been clear with what they did wrong, of, in your opinion, how they can correct that behavior in the future. Now, here's the thing. It depends on the age and stage of your business. Obviously, there's going to be a bit of a founder syndrome if you're in the early stages of exactly how you want things to be done. My challenge here is to make sure that the way you want things to be done is actually the best way for that thing to be done. And keep in mind, if you see someone doing a behavior that maybe it's a behavior you've not been able to master personally in the past, don't be afraid to get another person, like a third party, involved in the feedback process. Now, what I don't mean by that is when you're trying to be constructive with your feedback, what I don't mean by that is to like bombard or to, surprise this individual with a third party that's in a review or something like that. I don't think that's healthy. What I'm saying is maybe speak to the third party prior to doing the one-on-one with the person that you're going to give this feedback to kind of get their take on it before you give it. I think that's a really, really healthy way of handling the constructive side of giving good feedback. The third thing is making sure the delivery vehicle matches the level of feedback that you're trying to give. So what do I mean by that? A former leader of mine used to say that challenges done in public are responded to in public, and challenges done in private are responded to in private. And so I think we as leaders, those of us that are building and running businesses, we have to be really careful with who the peanut gallery is around the feedback that we're giving. There's twofold to that. I rarely want to challenge people that I really have an issue with in something like a public Slack thread, as an example, or even in a group setting, if I haven't first talked to them one-on-one about it. I think that's about some of the most unhealthy way you can lead. I also want to make sure, though, that if I am hit sideways by somebody in a public setting like that, that there is a way that I give that feedback very directly, because what I also don't want to create is a culture where that is okay, because that is not okay. So I think the part of the art of giving good feedback is understanding right place, right time with how you deliver that, the tone with which you deliver it. And the kind of part B of the delivery is, do me a solid. And when you really have to have a difficult conversation with somebody, make sure it's a conversation. Make sure you're looking them in the eye. They can see your body language. They can hear your tone. They can get all those other parts of communication that aren't written, that sometimes you can hide behind on your keyboard, on your phone or your computer. It's just not healthy. It's 2025. I know we're like a very tech first kind of world, but we're grown human beings who can do better, especially if we're business leaders. So if you've got something hard to say it to the person in person, or at least on a Zoom call, or take them out to lunch. Be respectful that they're a human being with feelings as well, and don't hide. Really lean in. All right, the last little quick point that I'm going to make about this, this is something that I learned when I was working for Brendan Burchard. Somebody on that team there said, hey, I use the SBI model when I want to give good feedback. So real fast, the SBI model is name the situation, describe the behavior, and talk about the impact that it had when they did it. Whether you use the first 3 steps or use the SBI model, have a plan for how you're going to give feedback. Because again, there is the science of feedback, but most of the time it's an art form. And I hope you learned something on today's episode. Until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side with 10-Minute Masterclass.